thank, of course, Professor Sokan for the very kind invitation. I am Andrea Pieroni from the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo, and we are working together with the lab of Professor Sokan since some years. It's our pleasure to have here today a very inspiring and interesting guest, Dr. Mohamed Djamel Miara. Dr. Miara is a plant ecologist from the University of Tuareg in Algeria and has worked extensively on ethnobiological issues in Algeria. The topic that will be the focus of his speech today is amazing, is the comparative ethnobiology of different groups in Algeria. And of course, the relevance of this is extraordinary, because if we talk about climate change, global change, very fragile environments as the desertic and semi-desertic areas of Algeria are crucial. So to understand the interactions between environment and humans, it's a big, big pleasure to have here today Dr. Miara. Again, thanks for coming, and again, thanks to all the audience and Professor Sokan for the invitation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. First of all, I have to thank Professor Andrea for inviting me for this stay in Italy and for this conference, and also Professor Sokan for organizing this conference. So my conference today will have come subject of documenting traditional ethnobotanical knowledge of ethnic communities in Algeria. It concerns Arab nomads, Tuareg and Kabyles. So before this, let me introduce myself a little bit. So I'm biologist and botanist. So I had in 2008 my STEM engineer diploma in biology, in ecology and environment from the University of Tuareg, Algeria. After I had my magister degree in ecology and taxonomy of plant taxonomy, to be precise, from the University of Oran, and after that, I had my PhD degree in plant ecology from the University of Oran 1. So overall, my research, I have several research, but I just thinking to put my published articles in peer-reviewed journal. I had 75 articles published since today. So for my research fields, so I am working in general on several topics related to botany. So plant ecology and phytosociology. It was the subject of my magister degree and even in my PhD. I'm interested also for inventories of plants, plant diversity in general, and taxonomy, chorology, and phytogeography, especially on endemic plants, orchids, lichens, and diatoms. Also, I'm interested about human science and climate change. It's recent in my career because it was a project with Spanish University of Barcelona which called LICHI, local indicator of climate change impact. And it was an opportunity of starting working on this topic. I'm also involved in some research project on phytochemistry and pharmacology, and of course, ethnobotany. So I want to show you some of my featured research. The most recent is of climate change. It's belonged to the LICHI project. The title was Climate Change Impact Can Be Differently Perceived Across Time Scale. This was a study among Tuareg community in the Algerian desert. It's a very special community inhabiting desert and who have a lot of special tradition and culture, of course. So it was a part of my field work data, belonging, of course, to LICHI project. The second work published recently, it was in collaboration with Professor Andrea Groups. It was about food security and a corn breed heritage in Mediterranean and Middle East. And my work was about documenting heritage on a cornbread in Algeria. So I made some surveys on this. I have also some publication on ethno-veterinary. The last one published in 2019 on Journal of Ethnopharmacology. Other articles on ethnobotanical surveys on medicinal plants used by nomadic people in the Algerian steppe. I will explain after this. I will provide more detail on this community after. And there is also some published research on herbal medicine for some region in Algeria. So I have also some research related to ethnobotany, because in my CV I have a lot of topic in research, so phytochemistry, ecology, plant ecology, but I just want to show you those related to ethnobotany especially. Okay, so now I will talk about the topic of the conference. It's about documenting traditional ethnobotanical knowledge on Arab nomads. So Arab nomads, it's a population of Arab nomadic people who exist in the central part of Algeria. They live in the steppes and the highlands. They are in general breeders who move a lot in between the north part of Algeria and the southern part of Algeria. So in total, we have 230,000 nomads in Algeria. For the nomad people, we have Tuareg population who live in the Sahara and Arab-speaking nomad who live in the steppe. The Arab-speaking nomad live in semi-arid steppe region between the Atlas Mountains and the Saharan Atlas. So they do something like transhumance. So transhumance is a permanent movement between north and south. So they, in summer, when it's very hot, they move to the north to make secure their animals. So and in the cold part of the year, they go to the Saharan Saharan part of Algeria. So they live of nomadism, and they do a lot of movement between these two parts of Algerian area. It don't work. I don't know. It's blocked. Sorry for that. Okay. This is some pictures from the area. These people live in the camps. It's small camps with tents. So they live in the tents, and it's easy for them to move permanently. I mean, this is a very old pictures from the colonial French period. So for this work, we do. I did some surveys to interview these people about medicinal use of plants in this environment. So I sample in 5 provinces. It was about 38 camps and 73 informants and 91 medicinal plants identified. Sorry. So the most important conclusion of this work was about culturally important plants like Mantas picta, Artemisia herba alba, and Juniperus phoenicia. We recorded some new uses for 25 non-medicinal taxa and 13 newly reported medicinal plants, never reported before as medicinal plants. And also 60% of the plant reported in Mediterranean Materia Medica. This work was published in Journal of Ethnopharmacology. So this is the publication. The second work, it concerned also the same population. So it was the second part of the project concerning pastoralism, and because this population live of pastoralism and they know a lot about animal and plant consumed by animal, etc. So the cast of grass, the search for water, and the reproduction of herd constitute the 3 main concerns of this breeder. So breeders have very close relationship with animals. I heard about some breeders in this region that they consider, they do not hesitate to consider or to compare their animals to their children. So they love animals and they consider them like their children. So the objective was to inventory or identify ethno-veterinary knowledge and investigate also if and in which way human and veterinary medicine are similar. So for the result obtained, we have 67 plant species used in veterinary or ethno-veterinary remedies, belonging to 32 botanical families dominated by Lamiaceae, Asteraceae, Fabaceae, and Apiaceae. There was 10 non-vegetable remedies recorded in this work. Also, the plant most often cited by informant are all harvested from the wild, because there is also some plants who are imported or buy in the markets. So we have Echinops spinosocimus, Atriplex halimus, Artemisia campestris, Juniperus phoenicia, and Peganum harmala. Leaves are the most commonly used plant part, and decoction is the most used preparation method. Important similarity are observed between remedies used to treat human and other animals. So this is a Venn diagram representing the overlap number of species in traditional animal and human healthcare. So we have 47 common plants between human ethnomedicine and ethnoveterinary medicine. So also this work was published in Journal of Ethnopharmacology. Okay, now we will talk about Tuareg of the Algerian Sahara. So, as you know, maybe the Sahara is the world's largest desert, covering 9 million kilometers and representing almost 1/3 of Africa's surface. So it's a huge space. The desert spans from Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Sudan, Niger, Mali, and Mauritania. The Algerian Sahara is considered as one of the warmest areas in the world. This hostile natural space is inhabited by a low density, mostly nomadic population. So most population live in this area are nomadic. Together with Arabic-speaking nomads in the steppe highland, Tuareg constitute the nomadic people of Algeria. So for all nomadic people in Algeria, we have two types. So we have Tuareg of the Sahara and Arab-speaking nomad of the steppe region. Tuareg especially are scattered in many African countries. They exist in Libya, in Algeria, in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso. There is very small communities in Chad and Nigeria. They live mostly in some special area in terms of ecology, especially or in particular in mountainous massifs like Tassili Niger of Algeria, Ahgar, Ain, and Adrar of Iforas, where altitude, of course, and water resources allow the growth of vegetation from surrounding desert. So Tuareg people are also in search of water and herb. I would say that in Algeria, Tuareg community is estimated about 20,000 individuals. Because of this relationship with environment, desert environment, Tuareg people depend on plant in food, in medicine, and fodder. For the result obtained after surveys, we have 118 medicinal plants recorded, belonging to 43 botanical families dominated by Asteraceae, Fabaceae, and Poaceae. Tuareg mainly use the leaves as the most used part, and infusion that as most used method of preparation. The most mentioned species in the surveys was Salvadora persica, Peganum harmala, and Amvilia gracini subsp. Radiata. Also, gastrointestinal system disorders are the most often treated disease. The treatment of cancer has the highest consensus among this community, with ICF of 100. This pathology is only treated by one known plant by Tuareg, which is Ephedra alata subsp. Alanda. So they call the plant Alanda. It's known like that in the region. So we have also 23 new medicinal plants, as well as 65 plants with new uses. For the originality of ethnobotanical knowledge of Tuareg community, a comparative approach with population geographically close. I mean the Arabic-speaking nomad of the Algerian steppe, with whom they are nomadic as way of life. So we do a comparative approach between the two communities. The ethnobotanical knowledge of the two nomadic community is influenced mainly by natural environment and culture. This is some pictures during the surveys or the interviews with Tuareg community. So you can see they also prepare tea 100 times in the per day. So this is also in the tents. And this is a Tuareg. There is some Tuareg who are farmer also. So they are sedentary people, but they are very rare. So the most of Tuareg people are nomadic. So I would like to show you some plants typical from the area, like Cupressus dupresiana. It is strictly endemic plants from Algeria and especially from Tassili Niger mountains. So this plant, it's also used as medicinal plant for coit and for several use related to influenza disease. We have also Anastatica hierochuntia, which is also used for gastrointestinal disease. We have Pergularia tomentosa, which is used mainly to treat scorpion bites. It's very efficient against scorpion bites, but you have to use the plant or the mixture with some other plant in maximum 1 hour after the bite. We have also Pulicaria crispa, which is used for dental and stomach pains. There is also Solenostema argel, which is also used for several diseases, to treat several diseases, especially problems of children peace, who can't control peace, to be precise. And there is Shuya tibaika. This plant is very special because it's hallucinant plant. It's like a very huge drug. So the leaves can, Tuareg people call this plant hebala. Hebala, that means this plant make people crazy. So there is a little history. I don't know if it's true, but people in this area talk about this history. It's about in the colonial era when French military come to the desert, they Tuareg people give this plant to military, and because of this they win the war. So they make the army crazy. So, and this is some beautiful place in the desert. It's called Ehere River. So in the river you can find a lot of vegetables and lot of trees, fish, etc. So it's very special area in the desert. This is Isandilan River. So I told a friend that it's like Texas in United States. Okay, so now we will talk about Kabyle community of the northern Algeria. So Kabyle community are Berber, like Tuareg, because Berber people are the original people of North Africa, and there is Arab who come after. So nomadic people of the steppe area are Arabs, but Kabyle and Tuareg are indigenous or Berber people. So these Kabyle people live in the coast, in the north, in the mountainous area of the north. This is an indigenous community of North Africa. They are Muslims, of course. They still retain many customs and a culture of 1,000 years. So this map shows the area where Kabyles community lives in northern Algeria. So they exist especially in the region of Tizi Ouzou and Béjaïa in the north of Algeria. So for the region of Kabylia, I showed in the map, it's a very diversified, it's very rich in point of view, floristic point of view. It's very rich area with more than 2,000 taxa of plants, including more than 260 endemic taxa. The area is covered by very original forest flora, of oak, several species of oak. And this population still use montane forest for food and medicine, including the olive tree. This plant is very representative of the culture of these people, because they use olives, wild olives tree and project for everything. They use olive for everything, for food, for medicine, for everything. And they also consider the tree as useful for 1,000 uses and uses. Like according to Le Tourneur and Wantou, the relationship between Kabyle mountain population and plants is very close. The Kabylians rarely practice agriculture, and they exploit only natural stand of olive tree, but also fig tree, Ficus carica, and other natural project of the forest. Okay. So they are very dependent of natural environment, and they live also from the originality of the local flora, which has high rate of endemism. So the importance of collecting oral literature about traditional botanical knowledge about Kabyle community. So the Kabyle population to settle and urbanize is very strong, the current tendency I talk about. So according to the Algerian Department of National Habitat, only 17% of Kabyle population currently live in the mountains. So it became very rare, whereas it's representing that more than 70% before I would say French era. So this strong exodus to cities mean that many customs, tradition, and knowledge are missing or endangered. So the objective of this projects or research project is to document traditional plant use, customs, and attitude, and also perception about useful plants within the Kabyle community in Algeria, Algerian Great Kabylia. So there is also an urgency of the study to study this community because ethnobotanical knowledge is still held by elder Kabyles in the Great Kabylia, who engage with traditional practice, but it's not transmitted correctly, I would say, to the younger generation. Also, in literature point of view, there is a very few studies concerning this topic. I just found 3 studies, that of Ait Youssef, Medour, and the very old one of Hanoto and Le Tourneur. So we adapt some methods to document this traditional ecological knowledge following the standard field collection method. We will use semi-structured interviews in indigenous language, Tamazight, which is very different with Tamashak, which is the language of Tuareg population. Interviews are typically elders because this is people who gather information, who are firstly briefed on the research objective and are willing to participate. I will show you some plants used for or characteristics of the area. We have Olea europea, the olive which is used for many things in the area. Ficus carica also. They eat a lot of ficus fruits, especially dried fruits. We have Clematis flammula also, which is mainly used in case of fever. We have some several species of orchids, like Orchis italica. They use mainly the bulbs as aphrodisiac for people who have some difficulty with that. And Ceratonia siliqua also, as they use the plant for several problems like gastrointestinal disease. We have also some lot of mixture of plant and animal project. I choose just some examples of smallpox and measles. In this case, they don't use red meat. It's prohibited, so they can replace this with a mixture of cinnamon, black pepper, saffron, goosebump, etc. So, and in case of ophthalmia, they use tare, onion water, garlic water, olive oil, and vinegar. This is some pictures of elder women from Kabyle. They have very special dresses, as you can see. In these pictures, there is some young girl, a Kabylian girl, who prepare couscous. It's the most known dish in Algeria and in North Africa, of course. And these pictures show, it's very old picture, who show that women preparing dried figs, which will be mixed with olive oil and eaten. This is another project I start to work, but I don't have yet final results. It is to exploring origin of ethnobotanical knowledge among the main ethnic community of Algeria. I mean, the three communities, nomads, Arab nomads, Tuareg, and Kabyles. So it is more about determine the origin of information, of knowledge or traditional knowledge in relation with some influence or factors like history, geography, or environment. So the objective of this approach is to determine the main factors, historical, geographical, or ecological, etc., determining the nature and specificity of the traditional knowledge of these communities. So we have some hypotheses about that. that means that Tuareg, maybe they are mainly influenced by geography because they live in the desert with very close contact with Black Africa, so African ethnobotany. So the hypothesis is that this knowledge comes from African countries. For the Kabyles, the main factor would be geography, the Mediterranean, history and ecology, because Kabylia is located in the very special area of mountain and forest. So the ecology is very important. So we think that this is related to Mediterranean materia medica in regarding the data, the origin of data. And for Arab nomads, we think that it's more about history, and there is a reference of Arab knowledge, medicinal knowledge of Ibn al-Baytar. We have primary methods to use in this case. So we can use a global presence absence matrix, data of several database accessible, and all the articles published in on medicinal plant in Algeria to constitute this this matrix, and using some multivariate analysis, statistical analysis. So finally, I would like to share with you some research perspective. I think I will work in the future on documenting more all traditional ethnobotanical knowledge of the different unstudied ethnic communities like Shawiz, Mzab. These communities never been studied before. The study of the influences to compare the knowledge, uses of plant in food, therapy, and others on the North African Mediterranean scales, and to complete the list of medicinal plant of Algeria. There is also the interesting topic about important area for medicinal and aromatic plant. This is the contest of UCN and to introduce it very recently, and I think I'm involved more or less in this project with some researchers from UCN of Malaga. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Djamel. What about questions? Do we have questions, comments?
Thank you very much for your presentation and for your talk. So I want to break the ice. I have two questions.
Okay.
The first question is a very general question, while the second one is related to ethnobotany. So I have seen your field of expertise, research expertise, very diverse. So my question is that, for example, being an ecologist, what was the motive or what sparked your interest to do research in ethnobotany?
Well, my history, my story with ethnobotany is very strange because basically I'm ecologist, and in my PhD thesis, the main subjects was related to phytosociology and taxonomy. And one time I read an article on ethnobotany, and I said, yeah, it's very, very close to my botany. So I think about starting doing surveys on medicinal use. As I'm botanist, I know plants. So I did the work without talking with my mentor or thesis director. And when he know about, because before publishing the article, I sent him the article and he was very angry. And he told me that he don't like this. And I had some troubles with him because of that. But I finally published the article, and I like this. So I start to be more interested in this topic.
Thank you. So the other question is that, because I have seen you have like a remarkable experience with it, interacting these communities. So how would you articulate or summarize? For example, you touched the different ethnic groups. Mm-hmm. So did you see any differences or similarities in food ethnobotany or medical ethnobotany among these groups? So because you mentioned some were practicing agriculture, some they are nomads, so they are Muslims. And
I think in the end of the presentation, I put some factors who maybe influence the knowledge of these communities. I mean, history, geography, and also ethnical parameters. So this, in general, Kabyle people, I don't have results yet, but I know a lot about Arabic nomads and Tuareg nomads. They are completely different. So because they are different ethnic community. Arabs come from the Middle East, and Tuareg are typically African, and they are also close for African population. I mean, black people of Africa. So the knowledge are different. The perceptions are also different.
Thank you very much for your talk.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask a question about the Tuareg communities, because you mentioned that they are spread in various countries in North Africa. Are some of these communities also nomadic transnationally? Are they allowed to cross borders? And is there a difference or a problem when they need to cross a border between two countries?
No, in reality, no. There is a consensus between people of North Africa, of this region in general. I mean, Algeria, Morocco, Libya, Mali, that they don't touch to these people. These people move between 4 or 5 countries without presenting any paper or have authorization of something like that, because they know that they are nomadic, and I think government in these countries respect these people, which is very, very good thing. So they don't, in general, they don't need some official or administrative paper to move between these countries.
Thank you. And the second question I wanted to ask is about effects of climate change. If there is a talk among the communities if they're seeing changes and how their ethnobotanical knowledge is changing or adapting to the changes.
I think I don't yet have an answer for this question, but it's a very interesting question. People in Tuareg, Tuareg people, for example, they have a special perception on climate change. This perception is related to religion. So they say it's God want this change, so we can do anything. So we accept this. But for ethnobotanical knowledge, I don't know. I saw some reflection about that by these people. They said yes, there is some change on plants because there is some new plant in the area they don't know before, and there is also some plants in the area who disappear. So they start to know the new plants and to know about this new plant. So it must be some changes in ethnobotanical knowledge, but this remains to be studied in the future. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. I was I was wondering if, with all the different languages you studied in and all the people speak that you study with, and I was wondering if you came across some interesting names for the plants, like, because every community has their own names for the plants they use, and it depends on the use also. And I was wondering if there was just some interesting names that you
there is a lot of difference in naming plants, especially in Algeria. There is vernacular names who change depending of the region, but the identity of the Latin names are standard. So as a botanist, I know the plants, but every time I'm interested about these vernacular names, and I always try to resolve this problem, because it is a big problem for researchers, especially in phytochemistry, for example, who are in general always confused between plants. And I can talk about some example for Thymus, for example, Thymus plant. In Algeria, we have about 50 species of Thymus, and they all call it Zatar. So it's a big problem. And people who don't know plants can do some mistake to recognize this plant. So I think the role of botanists, and this is the advantage to be botanist and ethnobotanist in the same time, I think. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to ask something about the future, because you have talked about the medicinal plants. And of course, this is a domain which is very tricky, especially in the Mediterranean, because with all goodwill, botanists or ethnobotanists alone, without historians of pharmacy and medicine, in my opinion, can say very little, despite ethnopharmacology and Marco Leonti. So how much do you think you need for the kind of research trajectories you want to explore the help of pharmacy historians? Because, I mean, to talk about plants is okay, but to talk about medicinal plants, at least a historian of pharmacy or historian of medicine, because otherwise you risk to to reinvent the wheel, especially if we look at historical sources on medicine, which in the Mediterranean have been extremely important. It's not the Amazon, it's not the Maya of some of our colleagues where you don't have historical sources. So to be very honest, I do not understand how you can do this project without experts of pharmacy, history, and medical history.
So it's a big question. I think it's important to involve several experts in this topic. So it's a big topic, and we need botanists, we need people who are specialized in pharmacy and other topic. So I think it's a multidisciplinary research area. So we can't, I can't do this alone. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you missed humanities here in the list. Just to complement to Andrea's remark, you named the plant Allenda.
Yeah.
Which is Ephedra alata subspecies Allenda.
The subspecies is Allenda, and
yes,
this plant was named Allenda because people there call it Allenda in Arab. So
but when did they start to call it Allenda?
I think it's an Arab names coming from the Middle East, because the subspecies, the taxa, is also exist also in the Middle East, in Egypt, southern Egypt, and in the desert in general. So,
so this is a recorded, historical recorded old name.
I don't know about the origin of the name, Allenda,
because it was named botanically in 1905.
Yeah.
So it's botanically a very old subspecies name. And the disease cancer, which you mentioned, 100% spread among people. For me, this is very suspicious in a way, because it's probably from the medical literature, because it's just not logical. For if you involve historical sciences, then you will get to know what is behind it. But
I recall that people from desert, for example, Tuareg, they don't know about cancer as a modern disease. They call this disease the bad disease.
So, but the meaning of bad disease might have been changed in time.
Of the bad disease is something happen who don't know why, and it's the result is the die. So people die without knowing why.
But in this case, how do you translate this bad disease automatically into cancer? Can you do it?
Yeah. This is the perception, because when I did the surveys, I asked a lot about all this, the characteristic of this disease, and people say this is the bad disease. This is, and there is also some people who have more or less some educations. They said it's cancer, but they know that before their grandfather and mother, they didn't know about cancer, so they just call the disease the bad disease.
Okay, in this case, you should actually call it culturally born disease, or put it in the culturally born diseases and bad disease under bad disease name, not under cancer, because whatever else you cannot, because you are not a doctor.
Yeah,
you cannot diagnose a cancer. The notion of cancer is coming from modern medicine.
Exactly.
So maybe you should be very careful in translating between the local disease etiology and also the names and the modern medical terms, because it may be very misleading.
Yeah, as a botanist, I know that this plant is already used against cancer in other places, not only in this area. So in the north, for example, this plant and other subspecies of this plant are also used. But in the north, people search for the subspecies of the desert because they know that it is more or less efficient against cancer. So there is there is a lot of probabilities for me as a researcher that this disease is cancer. So yeah, maybe it's more or less subjective.
This is how we introduce mistakes into our research, which can be very costly, also from the terms of ethnopharmacological studies.
Yeah.
So to do a really good research, one needs to pay attention to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's very good.
A really good suggestion
reflection.
from Andrea: involve historians, involve social scientists, involve medicine people who know how to interpret the diseases.
Yeah.
Because the research you do is very important, because the people still know things maybe which are not yet researched, but you need a team to work on it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very informative presentation. I have two questions only. First one, when you mentioned about one of the results in your ethno-veterinary results, you wrote there that the important similarities are observed between remedies to treat humans and other animals. So did you use any statistical analysis to determine that? Could you suggest some method?
Yeah, it's a simple method. I remember it was linear regression linéaire.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So it's in French. So
did you say linear regression?
Yeah.
Okay. To see the similarities between the remedies to treat humans and other animals.
We use it as a model, but after we used ANOVA for some data, and to have conclusion or some conclusion about that, we used a Venn diagram, especially. So
sorry,
to represent
which diagram?
A Venn
diagram.
Venn diagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I really have to ask. I'm now analyzing the articles that I'm reviewing. And one more. When you said about the result in the ethnobotany, you mentioned, or you wrote there, the ethnobotanical knowledge of two nomadic communities is influenced by both natural environment and culture. So did you base this on their socio-demographic informations, or did you use on any statistical analysis to that?
We used a very simple comparison between the origin of plant, the biogeographical sectors from the plant is original. This is for the environment, and for culture we used especially data from materia medica.
Data from
materia medica, Mediterranean materia medica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Do you have more questions? Yeah.
Historians, no. Returning to your field work, which challenges did you face during your field work? How open these communities to scholars? Or you need, I don't know. Thank you.
You mean difficult or problems to communicate with? Yeah. For Arab nomadic people, it was very easy because the language, first of all, and this population is very close to my area, my region. So we have a lot of similarities in language and in origin. But for Tuareg people, it was very difficult because their customs and they, for example, they don't allow young women to make interviews because with foreigner in general. So it was very difficult, but in general, people are very kind and they like to collaborate. Yeah, when they know why. So you have to explain very well your objective and to be honest with them. That's all.
Thank you. Very interesting. You told that you interview only to the old people. Yes.
Yeah.
Why old only?
It's simple because the elder people in general, the elder people gather the information. They have the information, and young people in general are more or less modern and they don't interested about old knowledge. So we have to in ethnobotany especially, we have to get information from elder people. Yeah.
And the second question is, you are some healers also, or all was ordinary people?
In general, surveys concern all people, but including also healers. But in Algeria, you know, you don't have official healers. Yeah, it's not official. What?
So how do you differentiate?
It's a folk healers.
So how do you differentiate it in your data?
In some article, I mentioned the number of healers and the number of ordinary population. And I have some article, for example, the article of Tuareg area. It was a simple ethnobotanical surveys that concern only healers. But in general, we don't do the difference between them because there is some healers who know a little bit, and there is some people, ordinary people, who know a lot. So in general, I mix the two type of informants.
Well, this is again the point I think we need to think for the future. The folk knowledge of the lay people is a completely different story of the knowledge of the healers. So in ethnobiology, every historian, every ethnographer divide these two data. Yeah. You cannot mix data coming from scholarly knowledge with data coming from oral knowledge, and of course, what is in between, which is an hybrid many times. So I would suggest for the future, you treat these two knowledge holders separately, because all over the Mediterranean, and I have some experience, these two medicines are completely different. And if you keep the data separated, you can understand better the exchange with scholarly written knowledge. This is what we do in ethnopharmacology and in ethnoveterinary too.
But healers in Algeria, I don't think if they are special or not, but as they are not official, so they, in general, they are not educated. They have no education. So they are very similar to ordinary people.
Well, it's a friendly fire now, you know. We are really
Yeah.
But the healers usually are covering very specific areas which ordinary people do not cover.
Mhm.
So even if on the first sight you may think that oh, they use the same plants, but they are treating actually much different diseases as usual people, because this is why they are healers. So you treat the cough and the bad disease from the people's perspective, but the healers are treating some more serious things, you know?
Mhm.
So this is why it's important to differentiate them, but you will not see it before you actually separate them. And then you need to ask also the question why some people use so many plants. Maybe they are healers, but they just don't tell you. If it's not officially allowed, for example?
No, it's not allowed.
So this is why you don't actually know that they're healers. So you need to ask the right questions.
In my research, as I told you, in general, I try to make difference between the two source of information, but the data are mixed because this is information. And of my experience, as I told you, I saw some people, normal people, have a lot of information, and I saw some healers who know very who gather a very few information and few details. So
it's not about numbers, it's about content. And some healers can heal with stones, with water, with prayers, well, at least in the north. But those who heal with plants are a separate class on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to pay attention to that. Don't want to repeat.
Okay. Just maybe a last question and something. Oh, never mind. Okay, no, not the last. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your amazing presentation. Just two questions related to each other. The first is, have you perceived when you're doing the field work that people are afraid or scared to lose some knowledges, some uses, and at the same time, second question, if you have heard or have recorded some uses that people are not using nowadays, but maybe they remember or they did something with plants in the past.
Well, the first question was about, sorry, I was.
Oh, sorry. If you have perceived or if you have heard that your informants were scared or afraid to lose knowledges, because I remember that you mentioned that the knowledge is losing between generations.
Yeah. Well, in general, elder people now that this information is very important, and they like to share this information with people, and especially with their son and the family. I mean, the young people, but they know that young people are are not interested in general. So when, for example, I come to make interviews, they are very happy. Yeah. So they are aware that this information maybe it will be disappear in the future. So they are happy to share this information as they know that we are documenting this information. And for the second question, it was about
past uses. So, for example, some uses of plants that were very common or maybe very practiced in the past, but the people were not any. Or in the
I don't have any souvenir about that. So in general, it is a very old knowledge about plants. So I told you that in some areas like the desert, they have a new plant, and they have also some plant who's disappear from the area. So they have a knowledge about the plant, disappeared plant, and they don't have any data or knowledge about the new plant. So they start to know this plant. So yeah, it's very interesting to know about that, because I just have some information about the plant, disappeared plant from the region, but I didn't ask about the information on the users, because this plant don't exist anymore in this area. So it's about the methodology of the surveys, but it's very important data, which will be interesting to report that in the future, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a very interesting question, which asks for another question, which is, how do you do your interviews? Do you start from the name, the showing the plant, or how do you do it?
It's depending about the community. For example, with Arab nomadic people, I use a tower guide method. So people come with me in the area and show me the plants. They told me about the name of the plant and the users, etc. So this was about Arabic nomadic people, but in Tuareg people, the methodology was different, because I did surveys in spring, which is very, there is in general no vegetation. So they told me about the name of the plant, and I search after on this plant in repository or in the market to identify correctly the identity of the plant in taxonomical point of view.
So if you are asking nomads about the plants which are growing around, you are actually missing the plants which grow on the other side of the mountain.
Yeah, but they know a lot about plant, because this area is a desert. So the number of plants is not very big. So they know all detail about the plant. They have no confusion, not a lot of confusion between plant. So it's very easy to know the plant, to identify the plant just with a vernacular name, and to search the plant also in the mountain or around. So this was my mission. in the field, because I did the survey with people, and as botanist, I was in the field to search for these plants also. So it was a double work. Yeah.
One question. Hello. One question more. You told that nomadic people walking wintertime in north, yes?
Yeah.
And summer is south?
They go in winter, they go to the north, and in in winter they go to the south, and in summer they go to the north.
Okay.
Which is a very ecological
yes, two
behavior.
different session on how this is session is using to the plants. It's different summertime and wintertime. Collected people in some plants in the boxes.
I don't know. The steppe area is not a very rich area in terms of phytodiversity. So there is some dominant plant like Stipa tenacissima or Artemisia herba alba or Peganum harmala, which are very known plant. And in general, these plants are mainly used in the whole period of the year. So they are present, they are shrubs. So they can use this plant every time. Otherwise, the annual plants in general are consumed by animals. So in ethnoveterinary surveys, annual plant was a dominant plant in terms of knowledge and consumption by animal. This was a difference between the human surveys and the animal or ethnoveterinary surveys.
Thank you very much. We have one question online. Can you talk us more? The question is Fatima. Can you talk us more of the use of the Alenda plant, the method to use to treat cancer? So we continue with the same question we already had.
Take more about?
Alenda.
Alenda,
so,
yeah.
But maybe we already answered the question, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can talk about Alenda. It's very interesting plant to treat cancer. It's very known. The genus Ephedra is very known in the Maghreb in general and North Africa to be used to treat cancer. And phytochemistry studies confirm that, because there is a lot of molecules who are inhibiting. They do inhibition or block the evolution of cancer cells. That was proved by biological experience. So yeah, Alenda is very interesting plant which can be more explored in phytochemical and pharmacological topic. Yeah.
Does he have already clinical studies? Just
no. I had a student on this topic. She did ethnobotanical surveys on cancer and phytochemistry topic on cancer also, but and in the ethnobotanical result survey, she found that the most cited plant among the most cited plant, there was Ephedra alanda. So to do anti-cancer activity, it was difficult because there is no lab in Algeria who can do that. And in the beginning, we hope to that the student can come to Europe to do experience, but there was COVID problems, and the student finally cannot come to Europe, and we just published the ethnobotanical part of the study. That's all.
Thank you very much.